Now we look at it that way.
But back then, no, you're like, dude, I got to make something myself. Oh my God, I'm out in
the rush. It's like, oh my God, I got to get it done. I got to get it done. I remember that being like that in radio.
Yeah.
I spent 3 years at I-95. I got to move on. It's time. Yeah. I got to move. I got to show that I'm, making moves and moving up the ladder.
You get a gig and then you want a better gig and you want a gig that has more dates and a gig that has more visibility and then a gig that pays better and go, oh my God, I need a gig where they have a W-2 so I can buy a house. And then
This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, a podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals. Mostly.
So you said you got a new gig? Is that what you're telling us?
Oh, I've always wanted to do Foley.
Foley is a lot of fun.
It's very much like being a percussionist.
Yeah.
But it also involves, extreme creativity and using sounds to create things, which is like a percussion instrument. And you might do things like walk in sand or run or break watermelons.
How do you get all those fun sound effects? That's exactly what I used to do in radio, was creating different sound effects from other sound effects. So if I wanted the sound effect of an arm breaking, right? And it's typically a tree branch breaking, like a...
Yeah,
like
remember the lasers in Star Wars were hitting the sides of those industrial wires? Yeah.
The guy wires holding up telephone poles.
Yeah. So I've got a friend in Hollywood, George. He's a great drummer, and he's been doing Foley for 20, 25 years. And
he gets paid to, we need, you watch like the classic scene where Hugh Jackman playing Wolverine, and it's for the movie Logan.
Yeah.
And it's his last, it's leading up to the end of the movie, and he's running through the forest and everything. They had to overdub in a studio his reenactment of screaming and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
It's got to be perfectly in time. You have to have great timing, like a comedian or a drummer. And so, George is a drummer, so he makes him, obviously, the funny thing is that I'd like to do some Foley, and he wants to jump on a bus and take the music to the people. The grass is always greener, isn't it? Isn't it interesting, human nature?
Dude, when I first met you in way back when, Johnny Rabb was also a part of the grouping. I met a lot of drummers around that time, and it was kind of really cool because you led it off when we met in 2008. And then I reached, I don't know, I think we did your vid sig, and that led to the front men doing theirs because I saw what I did with you, and Reggie did his. So I think Johnny Rabb saw it. And for those of you who are listening, you are listening to the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, where we talk to Middle Tennessee business owners, entrepreneurs, and people who can't get a word out of their mouth.
Yeah. Regularly.
And Rich and I have been friends going on 18 years, I want to say, at this point.
Yeah, because we were basing it on your son having his 17th birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's correct. And
did you guys do anything fun, like a pin the tail on the donkey kind of a thing? Or?
No, you're 17. Typically don't do those things anymore.
At 17, you are typically not wanting to hang out with adults.
He's good. He's coming around. He's still kind of like he's 17. He's how it goes. We're going to do something fun with him, I think, tomorrow night.
Nice.
Yeah, because he wants to have no obligation of school the next day.
Don Arturo's?
I don't know. Whatever he wants to do. We kind of had dinner. He wanted Cracker Barrel because that's where he works.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Here in Spring Hill?
Yep, the crossings.
Wow. Okay, so we are doing a podcast tomorrow from probably 5 to 6:15 or so.
Yeah.
So I'll come crash it. Come say hi to the birthday boy. Let me know where you guys end up.
I'll let you know.
Especially if you end up at Frankie's or...
If we even go out.
Yeah.
We don't really... we've gone out this past weekend with the most we've ever gone out in a long time.
Well, you guys beefed up your backyard. You, you got the pergola and it's nice.
Fire pit.
The grill. The fire pit's a major selling point.
But getting back to, back when I met you, you kind of led that effort into me getting to know drum heroes, right?
Yeah.
Not that, Johnny Rabb wasn't exactly a huge influential drum hero to me, but an amazing drummer nonetheless.
Fantastic.
And he, innovator, inventor, entrepreneur.
Author.
Clinician.
Jeez.
Amazing teacher. And for those of you listening, look up Johnny Rabb, look him up on YouTube. You'll be blown away with his technique and just the stuff he can do on a drum. But he said the same thing. He wanted to do more of what you were doing. And you wanted to do more what he was doing in terms of clinics.
And we ended up doing that because then following his lead, I was like, wow, this guy's writing books and he's a major clinician doing that all the time. So I leaned into that and built that. And then he ended up doing less of that and then getting an awesome gig for, I think, maybe a decade now with Collective Soul, which I cannot even believe, because that's an amazing songbook. That's an amazing body of work. And, they're playing mostly in the summer. Yeah.
That's right.
Great.
Which is the business of musicianship, and specifically drummers these days. You gotta be kind of an octopus. You gotta think outside the box. Because it's funny, since you've come to Nashville in 1997,
you're good, Jim.
You did all things. You knew how. You didn't really have. The internet wasn't as pervasive back then. Certainly not social media. Look at him. You doing Foley again? What sound is that?
Could be a shaker in like a 9 Inch Nails song if you like
could.
lo-fi it.
You're kind of doing the if you take it out, that's a filter of sorts.
Yeah.
Dropping out the low end and kicking up the high. Yeah. That you're basically opening and closing a top of a classic.
This is fun facing you, because on my show, I'm usually in this chair.
Yeah.
And I got more of a side angle.
Well, I like to have you facing the guest.
Yeah. No, this is great.
I'm just the guy chiming in from time to time. I'm the idiot.
You're the Robin.
Howard. Yeah, that's what I am.
You're much more.
But back when you started in 1997, things were a lot different. You had to actually have demos on CD, I'm pretty sure. Did you have cassettes or CDs back then?
I moved to town with 400 cassette demos, Rich Redmond drums and percussion.
And it's like right there, you were like behind the technological curve. My goodness. Because, were there people like cassette players are being phased out by that?
Quickly. Quickly got a bunch of CDs.
CDs, and then
you get a DVD reel happening.
Right.
And then before long, you and I are on MySpace. We're meeting via MySpace. And then Facebook opened to the public in 2007. I remember sitting in Sam & Zoe's the day it opened to the public. And I said, I better get on this thing. Somebody just told me, get on this.
You get on MySpace, you're going to meet Jim McCarthy.
Yep.
Your life's going to change forever.
Well, you have been a great...
maybe for the better, maybe for the worse. That's yet to be seen.
I probably stole a lot of you, because you have you're a voiceover artist. But you have guys like Mark Hamill that have like a 100 variations on like some cartoon voices, and that's his angle. Yeah. And your angle is more,
what I learned in radio,
softer hard sales, monster truck, radio. So, I stole a lot of things from you, like the, .com. You know what I mean? The
.com.
Yeah. The fall offs and the
Gary LaVox.
Yeah.
We did that back in the day.
That's right. We did my last paid voiceover job was doing a Live Nation tour commercial for GaryLaVox.com.
You want to know my last one was?
What was it? Pull it up. You have it on cassette?
No, I haven't. Okay. I'll read it to you. It's really compelling. Great stuff. So much fun.
And can you believe?
Thank you for calling APCO. We are currently closed. Please leave a message.
Is that a hamburger gig or a steak gig?
APCO, I believe, is it's certainly a hamburger gig.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but it's steady.
What sounds good is getting some nice grass-fed beef, and
we should probably reference what that means.
So grass-fed is
hamburger versus steak.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, gotcha. In this industry is
because you could probably talk about that, because in the beginning, getting to what you wanted to do and getting to your current gig, you had to take steak gigs, which were nice when they came along, and then the hamburger gigs would add up and pay the bills.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, as creatives,
Smaller,
we monetize our creativity, and sometimes you're playing at Douglas Corner for $50, and then sometimes you're on a tour bus with a major label artist, and their first single is out and you're making $500. But you say, we said yes to everything. Yeah.
Because you kind of had to back then, because it was a lot more difficult to get your name out there and spread your seed. A lot easier now with the advent of social media. Yeah. Easier, dare I say. You still have to figure out what the algorithm feels like doing at that particular moment. What hashtags are you using? Is it being collaborated? Are you getting people sharing it? What's ticking the box of the American culture to help them get your stuff out? That seems to be the biggest question these days. Back then, it was just all about get your name out there.
Yeah.
However you can get it out there. So that meant going down to Broadway.
Yeah.
That meant, rubbing elbows with everybody.
Crashing parties, going to drummers' hangs,
Right.
going to writers' nights, telling writers that you like their material, giving them a card and saying, hey, next time you do this, I'll bring my cajon or my djembe. And then, this is Nashville, it's the songwriting capital of the world. Songwriters lead the culture here because without 3 chords and the truth and a story being told, and then there's no need for a drummer, a producer, session musicians, a live band, chefs, social media managers, day-to-day managers, labels, none of that stuff. You got to have the song first. But no, social media you can use to crack a door, but then you got to walk through that door and try to physically connect with those people in real life. And that's what I tried to make a habit of, like use social media to create awareness.
Yeah.
And then actually in the real world,
you DM, hit them up on the DMs, right?
Yeah.
Which is a lot of what I do to get podcast guests and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Starting that relationship in a very authentic way, very genuine approach, not like how we get hit up on LinkedIn these days. What's your LinkedIn game like? When people are inboxing you?
Well, I wanted to ask you about LinkedIn because I swear I have been on LinkedIn for probably 15 or 16 years, and very, very, very rarely, I actually don't even know if I've ever gotten a job from LinkedIn, but it just seems like it creates awareness. And then the expectation is to have one, especially since I'm a speaker and an author on that side of things.
Mm-hmm.
You're expected to have a LinkedIn page.
Right.
I do better business on the other social platforms. But my inbox on LinkedIn is, hi, would you like to be in the top 50 people under 60?
Yeah. Thanks for accepting my request. Let me hit you with 3 pages of my pitch that I'm sure you're going to read.
Yeah.
Because I'm so intriguing that way.
And the fake profiles, from like Malaysia. And you're like, I don't know this person.
Right. Broken English. You get the ones that they'll send you a message and then a day or 2 later, hey, did you get my message? Why aren't you responding? That they're like that aggressive.
Well, what's really interesting is whenever I am I use you as a gauge for authenticity and to check the gauge on potential projects. So I get hit up all the time for these interesting podcast shows, and they're like, it's a Facebook Live podcast that pays $3,000.
Yeah.
Who's got a budget of $3,000 to pay multiple guests? Surely they're trying to scam you and get your bank information, right?
Yeah, that's why I said, my advice was, well, if they have you on and you have to give any sort of credit card or anything, or, hey, we're going to overpay you and then refund the money, you just refund it to us. Yeah, that's giving your
my thing is I'm just not going to respond because it just doesn't seem legit. And if I don't know the guest and I don't know the host and they don't have much of a following, I can't find much information on them. They're just going to ask me whatever they want to ask me. And I want to have a better read on who's asking me questions, because in my line of work, I could be expected to answer on behalf of a whole host of people that I would not be comfortable ever talking about.
Right.
Right.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, going back to our original conversation, getting here in 97, 98, 99.
Oh, yeah.
To now, with somebody new coming to town, Broadway has become a highly coveted gig.
Yeah.
So here in Nashville, for those of you who are listening outside the area, they call it Lower Broad. Basically, it's turned into a giant tourist destination.
Yep.
Bachelorettes on pedal taverns. Why am I talking like Trump?
Hey.
China.
Other
things, hot tub buses, a bunch of women on there in wedding dresses and stuff, wooing away. A lot of people, I think that on Friday and Saturday nights, they shut down Lower Broad, so it's pedestrian only.
Kind of like 6th Street in Austin did that for years and years and years. Yeah.
It's a good idea because, it's attracting more tourists and it's better for the city.
Beale Street.
But, those guys, when you came here, Broadway was like
ghost town.
But you had to cut your teeth at least. Be a band in the window.
Places to go play. How much for the drummer in the window? I played in Legends with this girl named Christy Cook, and she, of course, wore the super, 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 super short Daisy Dukes way up high. So, her cheeks were hanging out, and everybody would pass by and they would come in. It's like, what do you want to hear? You're Cheating Heart, Tammy Wynette. So it was good. That was good training. And, my buddy Jim Riley, 20 years as the band leader for the Rascal Flatts. We kind of went to college, into the same college, and kind of kicked around Dallas together, ended up in Nashville. And that was just the thing to do. You went down there, you played the songbook, you advertised your wares, which was, trying to play nice musical drums. And hopefully you had a firm handshake, just trying to shake trees and see what happened.
But prior to this, you were in Texas, in Dallas, right?
Amazing music scene to this day. Some of the best cover bands in the world are in Dallas, Texas, because there's just this incredible host of musicians that go to, the University of North Texas, this small little sleepy town, Denton, Texas, that just cranks out world-class musicians, and those musicians, to earn extra money, will go work in the Dallas clubs in the evenings, or after graduating, they'll kick around Dallas for a year or two, save some money before they move to New York, LA, or Nashville. And that's kind of what I did. And I knew that I had to get out of town because I got wind that my professor, Ed Soph, was like, Redmond's still in town, because I was down in Dallas playing in the clubs in this killer top 40 band called Random Access. And he's like, Redmond's still, he's got to get out of here. He's not getting any younger,
You were like 23 at the time.
26, yeah.
Getting any younger, for crying out loud.
Yeah, but 26 becomes 30 really fast.
Oh, yeah, as we all know.
Yeah.
But, you come to town from that situation, because I played in cover bands in Connecticut.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about, what did you get for a gig in Dallas on average?
Back then in 1995, the nightclubs paid $75 or $80
a man.
And then
and that's for how long? 4
corporate
hours?
parties would pay about $150, $175, and you have a chance at getting a slice of the bachelor cake, the groom's cake,
right,
and then some shrimp, maybe some greasy tortellini.
But you're talking about 5-6 hours of working.
Right? Oh yeah, because the nightclubs, you'd have to load in the afternoon, so that kind of ate up your whole day. You'd have to go before the dinner crowd, set up your kit.
Mm-hmm.
And then the gig would be from like 10 to 2.
Oh, wow.
Late night. And
That
then
is
after you break down your drums and kibitz and high five and make your money and then drive home, it took everything in your power not to stop at the Whataburger.
Yeah.
And then you're in bed by 4 a.m. And then I might have a music theory class at 8 a.m.
That's a 12-hour day.
It's a long day to make. So if you start crunching
to make $80.
So what was I making? $8 an hour, $7 an hour.
Yeah.
But it wasn't about the money. It was about the thousands. It was about the experience that was leading to the tens of thousands of hours of experience.
In Connecticut, dude, we got paid. I think I made $175 to $225 on average in a cover band.
Yeah.
Just outside of New York.
But maybe it was saturated in Dallas. So the musicians were, plus I will say that
that's true.
A lot of the nightclubs there had live music 7 nights a week.
Yeah.
From 10 to 2.
Right.
So
you a lot of competition.
And then big, charismatic churches. I played in Robert Tilton's house band, the guy that spoke in tongues on TV. I was in his band. There was jazz brunches. There'd be Wednesday night church services. There'd be some killer big bands in Dallas, the Dallas Jazz Orchestra, the Collection Jazz Orchestra, cool rooms like Strictly Taboo, where you would play cool smooth jazz, like Kenny G and Jeff Lorber fusion. And it was a really cool scene. There was like a soul funk scene. There was this original music thing happening down in Deep Ellum. There's a section of town called Deep Ellum where like Edie Brickell and the New Bohemians were kind of formed. So Dallas is always going to have a great music scene because of the schools that are in the area. Just like Nashville. Nashville, we got TCU, we got MTSU, we got Vandy, we got Belmont, we got
it's a whole
3 School of Rocks, we got 2 Bachta Rocks, it's just a music
intensive city.
Yeah.
So you got a lot of competition here.
Totally.
But the funny thing is, you met my brother this past weekend. Yeah. We hung out for a bit. He's like, I just don't like the whole notion of, if I were to move here, and he's an experienced, seasoned musician, piano player, getting on Broadway and begging for money. And I'm like, but dude, you're in a lot of these are people trying to get broken into the business and
he's got a cool day job. He's a lawyer.
He's a lawyer, and he could pay his bills. And I'm like, you could do this like literally as a leisurely hobby.
He's like TMZ's Harvey.
Right.
I'm a lawyer.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe I said even be a lawyer for the industry itself.
Yeah.
Give him a fresh pair of eyes.
But it sounds like he's got another chapter and city planned?
Yeah, he's kind of looking towards different, southern cities. I told him that he's going to be a halfback. He goes, what's a halfback? I said, all the people from like northern states, I think Florida is great. And then they realize they get down there, they're there for 6 months. And this is a place better visited than lived. And then they make their way halfway back to North Carolina or Tennessee.
Yeah, because my parents have been in Florida for a very long time. They went down there to take care of my aging grandparents, and
but that makes sense for them.
Just stayed.
Yeah.
I mean, you get the vitamin D. It's wonderful. You can't go outside in the month of July in Florida. And, you've got mosquitoes and
gators.
Gators is kind of fun, because it's like, wow, it's just like dinosaurs are still roaming among us. But they also have these things called the no-see-ums. There's these little annoying bugs that make sitting outside and enjoying the outdoors like nearly impossible.
Really?
You got to just like cover yourself with, off to just exist in Florida.
So yeah, he's looking towards Florida, which I told him, I said, you're going to be a halfback.
Yeah.
You're going to be over it in 3 to 6 months. Or you could just bypass all that and move here with your little brother. And, we're the only family we have left of each other. Let's hang out, man. Let's work together and buy a place in Florida that we can go to and share. We could visit on a regular basis.
Well, Jim, you're very persuasive, and maybe he'll
hopefully
heed the call.
But he was kind of like up and he's like, I just don't want to pass a bucket around on Broadway. And
he doesn't have to do that. Hey, believe me, if I ever played Lower Broadway again, I would hopefully curate the playlist, curate the musicians, and we would get an attractive woman to go like with the bucket.
Right.
I would never do that. It's almost like Patreon.com.
Mm-hmm.
You and I can have Patreon.com on our podcast, but it seems like we're just patronizing. We're just
that's why they call it Patreon.
Yes.
But it's in a way, it's not really patronizing. You're saying, hey, we're not funding anything. We're not being funded by anybody. You don't hear any commercials on this thing.
Yeah.
Help us support it.
The most common pitch on that angle is this thing requires massive amounts of work and our time. So please help us out.
Right. That's a good pitch.
Yeah.
Getting back to the whole Broadway thing.
Yeah.
When you came here, it was a ghost town, kind of like a pain in the butt, I guess, I guess I'll do it. It's not really, you had to really, you were working for peanuts at that point.
But we were excited to do it, Jim. And the parking was free. I would park way up at the church on the top of Broadway, right by the Bridgestone. And I had a little rock and roller cart with my cymbals and my pedal and my snare drum and my sticks. And then my tools and parts, just because, the wing nuts and everything would be walking away all the time. You go down there, you get down there early, you set up. And you're just ready for anything. You're just that was an amazing time.
Do you remember like really being in the moment then and saying, I need to enjoy this? Were you cognizant of that?
Absolutely not.
Really? Because you were always looking forward to the next thing.
And that's our disease and the human condition. You have to really be self-aware and have just some spiritual training to know that, hey, life goes by fast and there's only one now. So I should just enjoy this no matter what is happening. I'm enjoying the heck out of this sparkling ice. I'm sure it's filled with aspartame, but I'm just enjoying this. I'm enjoying this time together and we're here now.
Now we look at it that way.
But back then, no, you're like, dude, I got to make something myself. Oh my God, I'm out in
the rush. It's like, oh my God, I got to get it done. I remember that being like that in radio.
Yeah.
I spent 3 years at I-95. I got to move on. It's time. Yeah. I got to move. I got to show that I'm, making moves and moving up the ladder.
You get a gig and then you want a better gig and you want a gig that has more dates and a gig that has more visibility and then a gig that pays better and go, oh my God, I need a gig where they have a W-2 so I can buy a house. And then,
And then you all of a sudden you've had a couple of different, you backed some pretty big artists.
Yeah.
The biggest one to date was a 7-year play, which I find out we've had on the other podcasts I produced, we had Michael Knox, a producer for Mr. Aldean.
That was a great episode.
Did you listen to that one?
Yeah. And I texted Michael afterwards and I said, I just wanted to thank you again. And then a couple of days later, I saw him because he had basically hired Aldean's band to come and play on this New Kids record, Tim Duggar on Curb Records. And it's always great to have that team together, but that team wouldn't be together unless, there wasn't a Michael Knox to, believe in everybody.
The vision that guy must have had and the tenacity. That's what I'd love to have and talk to him about on this podcast if he's listening, is that, look, I want to know about the days you woke up and you wanted to quit.
I'm supposed to connect you guys. So I figure that's on my to-do list.
I mean, that is interesting to me, but I keep on, we're like tangent city right now. It's funny because Broadway, getting back to Broadway, in the beginning, you were excited to do it. And the excitement kind of compensated for the lack of compensation. Because I remember what that felt like in radio. It was like, Courtney and I were talking about it the other night. I said, it wasn't a great paying gig, but man, the experiences we had, the people we met and all the fun things we were able to do were great for that time in our life until we finally had to get serious and make some real money. But for you, I guess it was kind of similar because now Broadway is extremely, like you're going to be excited if you got a gig on Broadway now, I think, because it pays so much better. There's so many more people down there.
It's just exciting down there. Like I don't make a habit of going down there, and usually unless I have out-of-towners, and we'll go honky-tonking and we'll make a day of it. And I'm definitely going to go to Layla's. I'm definitely going to go to Robert's. And there's like certain spots where I just like, wow, this is just, Robert's Western World is the greatest honky-tonk on the planet.
Dude, 20 years in this town, I've never stepped foot in that place.
But we're going to go. We should go.
We should go.
We'll get our fried bologna sandwich with the crinkle fries and a Coors Original.
They serve food there? I guess they do, yeah.
Really good food. There's like a short order guy.
Really?
Yeah, it's like a greasy burger.
We'll have to go.
And it's dirt cheap.
We'll have to go. That sounds appealing now. We probably should have done that this past Sunday with my brother.
Oh, they would have, because it's literally like walking back into 1955.
Yeah. A lot of the old school country you're going to hear is in that.
And then everyone says Tootsie's.
Yeah.
Tootsie's is the only room I haven't, old school room I've never played in Nashville in the front room. I've played in the back room, but from the front room where you're like right in that little tiny little window, haven't done that.
Really?
Haven't even sat in there ever.
You've never played Toad's Place either, and I have.
I know, buddy. It's amazing. Right by Yale University. Who knows?
Right.
I think Yale's got a school of music. Maybe I'll do a clinic there. I think it's very classical,
Right.
I don't know if they have a jazz program.
But you always had a bucket list. You knew exactly what you wanted to do. Again, Broadway is a different beast now for those people coming in. Still a good place to kind of shake hands and kiss babies, rub elbows with other music industry types, I would think, but probably a lot more tourists.
Yeah, but don't make a career out of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't.
I'd be fine. If I did a gig at, I kind of whenever I felt like doing it, maybe a Sunday afternoon and I knew the songs, I would do it. It's like, it's not important for me as a drummer right now to be doing what you do,
Yeah.
It's just, I tell people, I said, I'm glad I met you because it's not really, I'm not sure if it was a life I would be matched for.
Oh yeah. You were telling me you didn't necessarily want to wake up in a different city every day. And there's something to me is like, there's like a troubadour in me, I don't necessarily have a guitar strapped to my back and I'm walking down the railroad tracks to the next gig, but the idea of, getting on a bus with my friends and we play some great music and then wake up in another city the next morning and, there's a chef inside and I said, can I get, 3 over medium eggs? And he makes them for me. I kind of like it.
What's an over medium egg?
Over medium is where the whites are done completely, but you can still crack the yellow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of like over easy?
No, over easy, there might be some white slime that's like snot.
Okay. And it's the same guy every day and he knows exactly what you like. Now
it's different. We have carried caterers with us, but we have realized that for some reason, sometimes the quality control is better having a different chef in every city because they're just trying to impress you for that one day.
Oh, wow. Good strategy. Interesting.
Yeah.
So they show up. Tell me about like a day. You're going to be on tour in a couple of weeks.
Can't wait.
For the big summer tour.
Yep.
You get out there, you have bus call at night. What do you do? You get on there, you just kind of hang out and.
Yeah. So we meet at the Walmart Supercenter.
Yeah.
And then, you get out of your bus, you load your luggage into the car, you hang your show shirts in the back curtain, you set up your little bunk, plug in your iPhone, you set up your little world, you take your shoes off, your high-five.
That's your space.
Yeah. It's our little, on the submarine,
your coffin.
Your little coffin.
Right.
And I love it. Some guys don't like it.
What if you have a CPAP? Anybody have a CPAP on the bus?
Not yet.
No? Where do you put the CPAP if you have?
That would be so bad, Jim. I know. I know.
Seriously.
I'd be hanging out in the hallway or it'd be pushed up against the wall of the bus. It'd be very uncomfortable.
Because there's no nightstands next to your bed.
No.
Yeah. It's just you. It's body size.
Yeah. So you kibitz with everybody, catch up with everybody. My guys are older now and they got kids and they're used to getting up at 6 a.m. So they might be right in the bunk immediately.
Right.
Sleeping. But I might have to wind down a little bit. I might have to watch a scary movie on the satellite, and hopefully, the buffering and everything is good because it is a satellite, and sometimes you'll get a glitch and it's the most incredible part. All right, this is where the chest burster's coming out, and then it just pixelates and then it freezes there, and then 5 miles down the road it comes on again.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's rough.
So you're out in the general area watching TV on the sofa, whatever, and just rolling down the road.
Or I might go into my bunk and get on my iPad, and then of course you can download things from Netflix and all that. So I might do the thing with the ears and the iPad. I mean, it's easy living, man. And then, set my alarm for the next day. Oh, all right.
Which typically is what?
We're going to wake up and say, we're going to wake up in North Carolina. The bus is you look at your mileage. Oh, the bus is going to pull in around 7:30 in the morning. I'm going to, let's see, it's 1 o'clock now. I'm going to get up at 9 a.m., right? Because really, I don't have to do anything until sound check at 3 in the afternoon.
Right.
Johnny's got my back, setting up the drums and all that kind of stuff. So the first thing I'll do is I get up, I'll probably go in and get some eggs to order, and then I'm off to the gym somewhere. But if we're in the middle of nowhere festival, I carry in the bay of the bus a weight bench, weights, a BOSU, bands, jump ropes, all the stuff to make a little mobile gym. And I got a little Bluetooth player, and I get my Gatorade Zero and a bunch of cold waters and kind of give it hell, get that out of the way. Shower up, maybe go break bread, lunch with somebody. Of course, I've got this wonderful street team of people around the nation who I've met for all these 20 plus years of touring. So they might be like, hey, Redmond, I see you're going to be in town tomorrow. All right, so I'll pull in at 7:30. Come pick me up at, 10 a.m. They pick me up and they take me to the nice coffee shop. And we go get some coffee shop food. Big fan of coffee shop food. And catch up with that person. They drop me off at the venue. We do the sound check. Then, break bread with the band. We have the thing called the 501 Club. So at 501, we all go in. We try to break bread together as our little road family, and it's just time together, and then it's time to shower and such. And then we have an acoustic show.
You're showering twice a day?
Sometimes 3 times a day.
Really?
Yeah. And then we go. I don't know why
I asked that question.
We do an acoustic show.
Yeah.
For the VIP high rollers, they pay a little extra money, and they'll get to see Jason answer 4 or 5 questions and us play 3 songs. And I have this little cajon rig that I can play with my hands and a pedal and sticks and brushes and stuff, and it's kind of really fun. And that brings us to about 7:45 p.m. I get the sticks in my hands, and it's more kibitzing and potentially watching the opening acts. At the beginning of the tour, I always like to take pictures and video of the opening act drummers, just to let them know, hey, man, we got solidarity. I got your back. I'll get some videos of you that you can use on the socials. Maybe you'll do the same for me.
Yeah.
Go out there, do our show. After the show, you get off stage at 11 p.m. You're drenched in sweat. Definitely time for another shower. Maybe cool down with the guys a bit. We're cutting. It's a lot of very social life.
Yeah.
Highly social, and
you get up there and do the same thing again in a different city the next day.
You do the same thing again, but maybe I have a clinic. Maybe it's a Saturday.
Right.
And they're picking me up at 9 a.m. and then it's 45 minutes away. The drum shop or the high school or wherever is 45 minutes away. And then hopefully, I send them a nice little rider that says, I like these drums. I let them set up this way. I like them to sound this way. I just want to pull in with my laptop and my ears, plug in, maybe tweak the drums a little bit, and then I could do some teaching. I could do some lessons. I could do a masterclass. I could do a clinic, and I might do a midday corporate speech, for like a chamber of commerce or something like that. And then they'll get me back, hopefully, in time for the sound check.
Right.
And I always try to be there an hour before downbeat.
Right.
And then it's, more of the same. So it's all a variation on what I'm eating, who I'm visiting, am I teaching, let me get the workout in, and then execute that show. No matter what is going on, you got to play those 24 shows, 24 songs. Like it's the last time you're ever going to play them.
Yeah. So getting
you never
back
know.
to,
it might be.
Here's your life today.
Yeah.
This is a highly coveted life that a lot of musicians would love to have and probably kill to have. That you're coming to Nashville.
Well, they can do it.
It can be done, obviously.
Yeah.
You getting back to, let's say 2000, 2001, you're still here, you're grinding it out, you're figuring out the system and stuff like that. You've already met Jason in 99, I believe.
1999, yeah.
All of you, he was probably just like, I'm going to dare say that a lot of the artists, as a musician, if you're an artist, you got to look at it. My lottery ticket is me, right? And it's either going to win or it's going to fail. And I could probably get into other areas of the music business, but I'm going to try my shot. I'm taking my shot at being a big artist.
Yep.
I'm going to play the big gamble, so to speak. With a musician, you get to play a bunch of different lottery tickets, side person, that kind of thing. Artists are like, we got it. You got to spread your seed, get the experience, the time in the trenches. And hey, one of them might hit, That's kind of like the odds in a way. But it's funny because going back to what we were talking about with Mr. Michael Knox and Jason, 7 years. That blows my mind that they stuck with it. That is a long time.
Deep commitment.
To have a proof of concept in a business idea and have the faith to see it through.
Amazing.
And
thank God.
It's mind-numbing to think about that. Because you were a part of that journey, but you were also doing other things because you had to.
Pay the bills.
Right.
Yeah.
He was a part of your story, but a minute part. Because you had so many, at one point you were playing with how many bands?
We had 29 bands.
In 1 year.
In 1 year.
Without any...
Zero conflict.
That's crazy.
So that's God saying, I want you to get even more experience. I want you to cut your teeth more.
Yeah.
You're not
what was it like, baby, going through
not going to give you the big prize yet.
Right. 6 years of doing that, though, you had to be like, I know something's bound to happen. You just had to know intrinsically in your gut that I'm destined to be a big name in this town, out of this town, in this country, in the drumming community,
yes,
which you have become. But what were the days like where you're like, is this really, that had to cross your mind. Is this really going to happen? Did you have your doubts? Did you have those days where you're like, I'm freaking exhausted. It's just, it's a grind. Even
there were days that I called Haagen-Dazs days where you kind of rained on a pint of Haagen-Dazs because you're just like, well, man.
Right.
But luckily there was, a bunch of true believers, the Michael Knoxes and, I had Kurt and Tully in my life to kind of lean on because we were kind of like a unit. We had we were playing with Jason. We were playing with Tim Rushlow. We were highly coveted, sought after showcase band. We were started to do demo sessions together for all sorts of publishing companies. We had a rock band called Feeling Fiona, and we would play 12th and Porter and 3rd and Lindsley. And so there's a strength in numbers thing that's nice where you can kind of lean on other people. And that's why, I tell people that could be a model. That could be a business model for you. Yes, it's kind of the music business is like a every man for himself, you against the world kind of thing. But it sure is nice to find like-minded people that, you
found a tribe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice.
So it helps you weather that storm.
Tons of storms. Yeah.
It sucks doing it by yourself.
And it's nice. Michael Knox would be like, hey, here's a gift card. Or, hey, I got lunch covered for you guys today. And,
and it's like, he's a rarity in the business too, because he's waiting on his return.
Yeah.
He had some pretty big jobs and it paid the bills, I'm sure, but not to the point where he was taking that money and reinvesting it into a lottery ticket, essentially. He's continuously pumping it into that. And I just know something. I think the number was 40 showcases you guys did.
Yeah. So many.
My gosh.
That would never happen today. And it would be really rare to find a group of people that would stay together for 7 years.
That's what I'm saying.
It would be, when was the last time you heard about that?
If it didn't happen in 7, would you have still stuck around for 8, 9, or 10?
I'm sure. Look at the guys like, there's other stories like the Eli Young Band. Let's just say the Eli Young Band. They ended up having a nice couple of hits and they have a good career, but they were kicking around all over Texas for about a decade trying to make it happen, man.
Gosh. You got to do it for the joy at that point.
You got to love playing your instrument.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No matter what happens, I love the physical act of playing my instrument and then how it makes me feel and then how it makes others feel and impacts their life. Mm-hmm. It's just playing the drums is just a win-win. My whole goal in life is to just, keep taking care of myself because it's such a physical instrument so I could keep doing that thing. And I think of the people that are continue to doing it at the highest levels. Louis Bellson played to practically the day he died. Roy Haynes was in his 80s, an amazing jazz drummer. Guys are just, I'm a lifer. I'm going to play my instrument till I drop. I have, during my speech, I have a, a moment where I go, I'm probably going to go out like this, 1, 2, counting off a song. And that'll be a glorious moment because I will be in my purpose, sitting behind this thing that is a physical manifestation of my purpose in life.
Right.
So.
It's nuts, man. Because you really have to enjoy the journey.
I love
my
craft, man.
Yeah.
I'm like, when you start thinking of like painters, these guys that, they have to rent some place that's big enough for the materials that they need. They can throw paint at a wall and they're just in it. And I don't know how they're paying their bills. And then at some point, some tastemaker comes along and says, I approve of this. And I will bring this to all of my rich friends. And the next thing you know, someone's paying $2 million for this piece.
Yeah.
And is that artist going to probably upgrade his art studio and his quality of life? Probably. Yeah. But really, it's the focus. His reason is, or their why is
its purpose
is the painting.
Yeah.
I
actually typically try to look up questions.
Oh, I was going to tell my friend, while I got you here, this was kind of an interesting moment. I keep telling people that I'm having a midlife crisis. I think I've been having it for 15 years. But anyways, I've been going around Nashville and going to old houses and condos that I have owned or I lived in. So today I was out in Donaldson, Tennessee by the airport, and I have a good friend of mine, George Bruner. And George Bruner, he's a craftsman. He's a leather worker, and he combines leather and metal, and he makes these really nice handmade jewelry. And, a bunch of rock and rollers wear them. Kenny Aronoff wears his stuff. And so anyways, he was making a new belt for me that I'm wearing right now. And I was looking through this tub of cuffs, and I go, I put this one on, and it fits. And he goes, oh, man, do you realize that I made this for you, but it's for some reason, last time you saw me, you passed on it. But he goes, that metal on there is actually a piece of John Wysocki's symbol from the band Stain. So John Wysocki was a member of our community and was a good friend of all of ours, and he died about a year ago. And this was a part of his symbol. And so for one reason today, I tried this thing on. He goes, take it, man. I made it for you. You didn't take it last time.
Let's hold it up for the camera.
Yeah, so this is a piece of John Wysocki, God rest his soul, drummer's symbol. And so I'm wearing this today, and now I can look down and think about our friend John.
That's great.
It's a really interesting, so, yeah.
Because, you really, all the instruments, us being drummers, we are imprinting our personality on those instruments.
Yeah. Bruner Metalworks. So I went to go see George today. I'll go see him, once a year before tour and to say, hey, you got any new leather?
Yeah.
I'm a fan of a dead cow.
All the they say that nice guys finish last. I think about a Michael Knox, and he just had the faith and the long obedience in the same direction when it came to just believing in his artist. And he believed in you guys. Despite all the biggies telling me that, I just don't see anything. I believe in this thing's going to pay off someday.
Absolutely.
And I'm willing to put the time in.
Yeah.
You, on the other hand, you being, you're a great guy, a nice guy. Everybody loves you who comes across, even everybody that we've had recently on your podcast.
Aww.
It's amazing to me, unprompted. We're not prompting them at all. Guys, you go and listen to the Rich Redmond Show. Go check it out, richredmond.com/podcast. It probably in the last, I want to say 5, 6, 7 episodes, we've had some of the newer people to town that have made a name for themselves, who have literally listened to you and absorbed your wisdom and the things that you've had to say over the last 20 years. And now they're doing it, and that nobody's being prompted. Everybody feels compelled to thank you for doing what you did and showing us how to do it. And that's starting to come around now.
Crazy.
It is. It's not though, because that's what you set out to do.
Yeah.
What was your card? What did it say? What was your mantra when you got here? Remember when we talked about it?
Well, the first card I ever had when I came to town was Vistaprint. Because you're so
not a business card, but your mantra.
Oh, my mantra is my purpose in life is to affect people in a positive way and change lives. And
Did you know you were going to do that, or was it kind of like this is a lofty goal? If I do, great. If not, who knows if I'll ever know.
Well,
that validation's happening now.
Yeah, it's cool, man. That is cool because it is cool to see, like I said, I've never had children. I'm always Uncle Richie, right. Uncle Richie's the cool uncle, and that's great. But I start looking online and I'm thinking, oh my God, I taught that person. I taught that person. I taught that person. They took my class. They came to Drummers Weekend. Oh my God. Hundreds of people. Yeah. It has really added up. And I could look at their careers and I go, wow, they just signed with a major rock band. That person just finished Berklee College of Music. That person got accepted to the University of North Texas. That person's riding a bus. They're playing with a hit. Wow. That person bought a house.
Yeah.
With their drums.
Yeah.
And so if I can have any, like I said, I'm not a genius. I'm just in my purpose. And if there's a ripple effect of a person being in their purpose and enjoying what they do, and it helps others, fantastic. Because I am a teacher. I've always been a teacher. I have a teacher's heart. I was trained to be a teacher. I have my master's in music education. So along the lines, you have to write a lot of papers. You have to study a lot of pedagogical practices. You have to study educational philosophies and, how you might, conduct a high school choir or a high school symphonic band or score for a marching band, all sorts of things that I don't necessarily use all the time, but I'm sure glad I did it. No one can take that away from me. I mean, I hated studying the clarinet. I hated making shapes on a football field with a marching band. Mm-hmm. But it was a means to an end. Why did you hate it? It's just because I wanted to be in a rock band.
Yeah.
I was 18 years old and I really wanted to be in a rock band.
That's
like being a comedian. That's about as safe as being a comedian. So my parents were like, look, we're going to go to school for 4 years. You're only going to be 21, 22 years old when you get out.
Yeah.
And you'll have something that no one can take away from you. And then while you're there, jumping through these flaming hoops of taking science of sound and studying the bassoon for a semester, I got to practice hours and hours every single day. And all summer, I'm in the music building at Texas Tech University, and I have my professor, Alan Shin, gave me one of the beautiful Wenger lockout units that was had AC in it, and I had my set of Remo drums in there and stacks and stacks of method books and a Alesis SR16 going through a bass amp, and I could just practice and transcribe 12 hours a day and sit in my room and work on my cup slap on the conga and then get in there and, listen to fusion records. And it was a great time in life,
Was it great? Did you realize how great it was at that time?
Still wanted to be out there doing it.
Yeah.
Because every time a clinician would come into town, or I played in the big band at Texas Tech University, and we'd have these amazing guys that would come in, like Steve Wiest, who was in, Maynard Ferguson's band with Greg Bissonette. He would come in, Dennis de Blasio, the guys from the Yellow Jackets would come in. There'd be all these guest artists, and I would just be so excited to meet them because they would always live in New York or LA. And I'd be like, and I hadn't really gotten out of Connecticut or Texas. And I was like, what's it like in sunny Los Angeles? And what's it like to play on the mean streets of Manhattan? Are you telling me you got to move your drums around in a taxi?
Yeah.
Will they stop for you? What does it pay? Where do you live? It was just...
to me, it sounds like a nightmare.
Well, looking back on it, it's a young man's game.
Yeah.
Sean Pelton, 25 years as the drummer with Saturday Night Live, he's like, man, I lived in this, rat-infested apartment on the 4th floor, and he'd have to schlep his drums. There was no elevator. He'd have to, dodge homeless people and people taking dumps in the street to get his drums up to his 4th floor, studio apartment. And, how many
entire drum sets.
How many years later?
Yeah.
He's the contractor for the Saturday Night Live band. He's played on some of the most iconic records of all time. And he owns, I believe, it's like an urban legend, 2 sizable apartments in Manhattan. He knocked the wall down and he's got a nice pad with a recording studio in his apartment.
Good for him.
In Manhattan.
Yeah.
That is not easily done.
Well, he put the time in.
And he got a television job, and television jobs pay great because there's a union and there's residuals.
Right.
So every episode that reruns of Saturday Night Live, he's seeing a check.
So, but he's got to be a part of the episode though at some point, and typically he is. He's on camera.
he's on camera and he's backing up artists, and then that's good.
We need to get him on.
Sean would be great. You know, when we played SNL in 2017, you know, it was nice. He took the time to come backstage and give me a hug and say, I like what you're doing. I read your articles in MD. And
did he know who you were?
Yeah.
Did you meet him before that?
I'm sure we knew of each other.
Yeah.
You know,
you never personally met before.
Yeah, we met personally then. He's like, yeah, man, good job. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, reach out to him.
It was great.
He'd be a good guy to get on.
We get him on Zoom.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Zoom it up.
I'd love to talk to him.
We got a Zoom tomorrow with Stan Lynch, the original drummer from Tom Petty. 20 years with Tom Petty. I mean, that's going to be, and I've known Stan since in the year 2000. That's when I met him 25 years ago.
Well, it's longer than 20 years. He's been Tom Petty's drummer the entire time.
But I met him in the year 2000 when me, Kurt, and Tully were in the house band for the Warner Chapel songwriting camp. And we basically just sat in the studio all day, and Stan would write with Etal Schur, who was this guy who wrote for Carlos.
Never heard of it.
He wrote that.
Yeah.
Jewel was there. Robbie Neville was there. You know, he had that song C'est La Vie, C'est La Vie.
Yeah.
And
Neville Brothers.
No, not Robbie. This is Robbie Neville. He was a pop artist in the late 80s.
I thought that was it.
C'est La Vie,
yeah.
C'est La Vie.
But I thought Robbie Neville was part of the Neville
You're thinking about
brothers.
Ian Neville. Ian Neville, and there's a guy that had the mole on his face.
They were big guys, and they always looked like they were squeezing the crap out of the microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, shame on us for not remembering
The Neville brothers?
Aaron Neville.
Aaron Neville.
There you go.
Yes. Robbie. Well, I think Robbie might have been his brother. No?
Yeah.
I'm wrong.
Different ethnicity.
Okay. Gotcha. I see. So
anyways, yeah.
Tell me what it was like to hear yourself, you know, I know we've talked about it before, especially in the world-class award-winning documentary we both put together.
Working the Dream.
Working the Dream. It's on YouTube. You can go check it out. It's only about 45 minutes long, but perfect for an hour-long documentary that needs commercial breaks.
Well, actually 45 minutes, but originally it was probably 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
But I kept telling you to take things out because I was so gun shy at that point in my career about
you were overly
people.
PR sensitive.
You know, and I still am. You know what I mean?
I know. Yeah. I know you.
We're in a world where at any moment things could be taken as sound bites and they can be taken out of context and used in an inappropriate way, which is very scary.
But I think ultimately, yes, you're right. But we're also to the point as a society where our skepticism is at such a level that we automatically think it's fake. Okay, so it's either AI. I know the other day I saw, I watched these boat videos, wavy boats especially, where you'll see these people in an inlet, haul over inlet. And I think, dude, at this point in my life, if it gives me joy, I go for it. I just kind of gravitate towards it. That's why I've got all the Marvel stuff up to my left.
Amazing.
And, I got back into drumming again and I'm enjoying it. With that, I just enjoy watching boats like idiots in pontoons going through this tumultuous inlet, which is like one of the most tumultuous inlets ever. High tide and low tide, this thing just eats boats. And, let's take it out in the ocean, the rental pontoon from the bay. And it's like, these guys just get their...
It's stupid human tricks. It's great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Does your garage door sound like this? If it does, it's screaming for help. Call Incredible Doors, 931-348-DOOR. We're making garage doors in Murray and Williamson counties work better and sound better. We just make them incredible again. Go to IncredibleDoors.com or call 931-348-DOOR. Follow us on Facebook for specials on maintenance visits, keypads, and other items. 931-348-DOOR. IncredibleDoors.com.
In this video, they got what seemingly is like a beach wave, a very medium-sized beach wave that you'd go body surfing on the beach.
Yeah.
It comes over the boat and takes the entire boat. Oh my gosh, the whole thing disappeared. It's AI. It's fake. And I was almost oh, really? Come on. That would have been a cool video otherwise.
The AI generated headshots and such. I'm interested to see
Yeah, but they did that about a couple of years ago. I did that too. And you pay for like a pack of 10 pictures or however, maybe it's $10 for a bunch of like 100 pictures. But they take about 7 pictures of you and have different AI. They take your attitudes, your facial structure, general, how you smile, if you don't smile, and then they put personalities to it. It's odd. I'll have to show it to you. They made me look like Bruce Willis from Armageddon.
Remember that?
Yeah. And there was like one point where I had my shirt off and I was jacked, and I'm like, yeah, I wish I looked like that. But it was also when I was bald and had the badass beard bald look until Courtney wanted my hair to grow back.
I love it. But
yeah, those things.
Got a nice little head of hair you're working on there, buddy. Good.
Now they got AI flying apps. You could actually upload your photo and likeness and they'll make videos of you flying.
I mean, where is it going? I just don't know, man. It's...
we just heard about an app that apparently will strip instruments out of songs.
I don't like it.
I know you don't like that.
I know you don't like it, buddy.
That brings me to the business of music. I mean, ever since Napster, your industry has just been in flux. But, maybe it's fair to say that even the formats of the delivery of the music changed. You had 8-track, you had vinyl, you had cassette, then it went to CD, then it went to MP3. But since Napster, the industry has been shaken up, right?
Yeah. It would be interesting to have found... I'm grateful for everything that I have in my life. I work so hard for it, and it's fantastic. But what if I had hit with a rock band in my 20s, in the 90s? Because that was the Velvet Rope era. I mean, that was limos and velvet ropes.
But I think it was trending down by that point. I want to say the 80s was more like
there
that.
was money in the music business then. Wow.
Was there?
Yeah.
In the 90s?
In the 90s.
Remember
people Seattle, the Boom, and
really?
Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and modern rock radio. And
did singles ever take off? Like, remember the singles when they would offer, it was like buying an MP3 now. You spend your buck on iTunes, you just want the song. Now it's just all streaming. Were singles a big thing back in the 90s? Or they still bought albums, right?
People still bought albums, yeah, but you had to have a single for the radio. There's the new one from Stone Temple Pilots.
Right.
Oh,
yeah, of course.
Whew, man, that was a heyday of quality rock bands, man.
90s music to me was such a hodgepodge. It was such an interesting time for new music to come out because I was listening at that time more than modern rock stations. Because I was getting in the radio. I wanted to get in the radio. I wanted to work for 92.3 K-Rock in New York City. And they were the premier modern rock, active rock, probably modern rock.
But if you had gotten the lead DJ job at that station in New York City.
That would be impossible because it was Howard Stern at the time.
Oh,
he was a morning guy.
Okay. But what I'm saying is if you were a rock jock on one of the other shifts.
Right.
Did it pay a lot of money?
In that city? Oh, yeah. You made probably... I would have to, if you're an afternoon guy,
200,
probably 250,
$250,000 in 1990s money.
Yep.
And you were actually had a say in what was played.
No, I think you probably had a say. It depended on their role. If they were music directors typically they would be the first ones to hear what the record company representatives would be like, hey, could you add this week? How many spins can we get? They would have those conversations. And then typically the music director would bring it to the program director and say, hey, what do you think? Let's put it in, rotation at night, in the evening, see how it does. How does the audience respond? So it was very organic. I would say back then, to a certain point, I think payola was still a thing, in terms of whining and dining, but, not like it was in the 70s and 80s with the boss jocks. So
interesting. And when you played that new single from Stone Temple Pilots, was it still the physical CD, blow on it, put it on?
Yeah.
Because there was a risk of it being scratched or having dust on it.
They would sit in their own ready to go jewel cases. And you'd put it into the CD player, which is a specialized industrial commercial CD player.
Yep.
And it would queue up, you had a little knob on it, you dial the track in, and it would be ready to go. And typically on the board, you'd fire it right from the board.
Wow.
And that was in the mid-90s was the last bastion of
hardware-based
disc jockeys that were one step beyond queuing up vinyl. Because that used to happen. They would have to sit there and hold the vinyl, and the turntable underneath would be spinning, and they just hold on and be like until they were ready. Okay, and they would back it up so they wouldn't have, Yeah, it's an art form. There's actually you go to California Air Check on YouTube, and it's fascinating. Like the guys from the 80s pulling their music, and they're riding gain, and they're hitting the post.
What is there, videos of it?
Oh yeah,
gotcha.
It's amazing to watch. I mean, it was a true art form.
Awesome skill set. And then if those guys stayed in the business and they were trying to stay relevant and keep up with the latest technology, they had to totally change to a software-based system.
Well, that's when automation came in, voice tracking.
Yep.
That's about the time I got into radio, was when all the things started, I got into at the point where everything was on a computer. I literally, in my live shift, I would hit a button. And
but it's got to be, you make an art out of it.
Oh, I did the thumb slap, or might hurt my finger, but that kind of a thing.
Nice.
And I'd just be like, the home of rock and roll, I-95, bam.
Bam, see, percussion again.
Right.
Foley,
exactly.
Percussion, DJing, percussion, working in radio, percussion.
Exactly. But it was a kind of a cool experience. One day I came in for my shift and the entire system shit the bed. Everything was down.
What happened?
The hard drives just crashed. Wow. And all the stuff, all the commercials, all the music, they had to go back to, quote, the Stone Age. They kept their wall of music readily available in the studio.
For that purpose.
Maybe for aesthetics. But getting all the commercials, all the spot sets, literally the production director's job that day was to put all the spot sets on reel-to-reel. And they would carry in the platters and say, okay, here's the next hour.
Yeah.
Here's the next hour. Here's the next hour. Here's the next hour. And because that was important, they had to make sure that they played the spots. That's how we got paid.
Interesting.
And, he had to put them all back to back. Not a fun job.
Yeah.
But getting a taste of running the board manually was a lot of fun. Pulling your music, the next hour of music, that was a lot. Looking forward on the logs and seeing where you are and stuff. I had a blast because you had to stay there for 6 hours being on the air.
I'm sure. And you had your P songs, right? Like Stairway to Heaven.
Yep. Stairway to Heaven and Nights in White Satin.
I love it.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show, if you're an open-minded person, you notice that every person that has any job on this planet, there is an art form to that job. Whether you are a janitor or a host at Bricktops, or you are a garbage man, or you are creating high art, or there is an art to doing a job well done. There's an art form to all of it.
Good point. I mean, there's actually in the electrical field, because trades are starting to make a huge comeback. Dude, I found out yesterday at MTSU, they have a concrete program.
To pour concrete.
To learn about concrete.
Yeah.
It's a whole degree program. And these guys that are coming out of this program, they could make $80,000 to $150,000 a year within the first year or two.
It's awesome.
Because they just know about the chemistry of concrete and what works and what it's. I learned about this yesterday. It's crazy. Yeah. As you know, concrete can be an art form.
Well, and thank God for the trades. You
look at electrical, there are guys on Instagram that are getting tool deals and representation and things of that nature. There's a guy named Tennessee Electrician, and he'll just put a camera behind him and rework a panel, pull all the guts out, redo the wire, make the wire just they're all parallel to each other. It's to watch somebody properly put a panel together and redress it up. It's about an 8-hour job.
Yeah.
But when you time compress and you see the artistry involved when it's done properly, it's freaking beautiful when it's done. You ever go into Costco, like these big warehouses, and look at the pipes that are running, the silver pipes. Somebody has to bend those, and they got to be perfect. They got to fall in line. That's a freaking art form.
Yeah.
Bending pipe and conduit in the electrical field is truly an art form.
And if you have pride in your job, there is even an art form to being the guy that works at the deli counter at Publix. There was a young man. I went in there and I said, hey, my parents are coming. First of all, big smile on his face, young kid, kind of unexpected. Yeah. How you doing, sir? How can I help you today? I mean, it's total sincerity. Oh, parents are coming into town. I was thinking about getting maybe like a full pound of your boar's head, black pepper, great choice. How many sandwiches you think you're going to have to make? Like
he's got the sales process down.
And I was like, dude, we're probably going to have about 4 sandwiches, but we might do that 2 times. All right. So 8 sandwiches and 2 slices of turkey, you think, per sandwich? I'm like, oh yeah, my dad, Dagwood. He wants to make some Dagwoods. Totally set me up. He goes, let me know if you need anything else. I'm here Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, blah, 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 blah. I mean, great. I mean, it's like, wow, what a pleasurable experience.
Yeah.
Or when somebody's checking you out at the counter at Publix and they are efficient, they have a smile, they're pleasant, they help you bag everything. It's, because I've seen the opposite ends of the spectrum.
Oh, totally. We have those in
and
town.
That sucks.
Yeah.
Because
that's what you expect, though, because it's a supermarket job.
They're taking your money either way. So if you're going to take my money, God, if it's pleasurable.
Yeah. The experience matters.
Yeah.
And when you got somebody who is an entertaining aspect of it, look at the bartenders. You ever see a flair tender? You had to in your days on the road.
Hey, if I was a bartender, I would be a flair tender.
You know what a flair tender is?
Put some, some
spins,
some Tom Cruise stuff.
Tom Cruise, like cocktail, right? So we first saw that when we moved to Vegas.
Yeah.
And that bartender made bank because you're entertaining now.
Even if you don't go that far and you are just a great personality.
You're on it.
Yeah. And if you have the art of like, there's someone way down at the bar, he's holding up $100 bill. He's just trying to get your attention. He's not, I've done that. I'm not trying to be douchey. I'm just letting you know, hey, I'm going to hook you up, bro.
Yeah.
And just give me a nod and be like, 1 second, or I'll be right with you or something. It's the ones that ignore you. And it's like, am I ever going to be greeted here? Am I chopped liver?
It's acknowledgement. Huge.
Big.
Yeah.
Being a session drummer.
Well, that's the thing that you talked about on, we kind of did some driving scenes and we would ask questions.
In my Honda Element, which I miss.
Which back in the good old days.
It's the best plastic car ever.
He says, no, but you made so many different little wisdom nuggets that I remember at the time hearing them come out of your mouth. I would file them in the back of my head. One of them was, look, treat everybody in the studio, at least in the studio setting, you're talking about recording at the time, like you would want to be treated or they would want to be treated. The people that are at the front desk are working there. They're getting their foot in the door. And for somebody who's influential coming in, who's actually doing the thing they want to do, for you to be nice to them was just a huge part of their day. And that's your brand. Your brand made them feel good because you said, look, every single person in that building wants to move up.
Yeah.
They want to excel in their career. And if they can remember me and how I treated them, that's going to help me because eventually if they land in an engineer spot or a second engineer and then they become a producer, maybe they become, alongside of a major artist and they remember me, I can be a part of that gig. Yeah. You had the right attitude. I can't imagine. I think a lot more people, because of you sharing that information, probably apply those principles to their lives, which makes competition more fierce.
Yeah.
But for probably once upon a time, you talked about getting vibed out in the studio, especially when you were new.
Oh, when you're new. Right? Yeah. Gotta be nice to everybody. I mean, just doing a great job as a hired gun musician. You get the information. You talk to the producer or the artist or the engineer. What are we looking for? What's the vibe? What's the energy? You're referencing what are the artists, other artists? It's like a Stone Temple Pilots thing. Okay, so I'm going to bring my, Ludwig Vista lights, a wide open bass drum, but I'm going to have a towel in the car, some towels. I'm going to have a variety of pillows in the car, a variety of snare drums. I got a bunch of sticks and mallets and brushes.
Did every drummer of your level, when you were coming up, did they have that wherewithal and that awareness to even have those things on hand just in case? Were you kind of like, were you ahead of the curve?
No, I think most guys have the stuff on hand. You got to have a variety of snare drums or just have one really amazing snare drum that can do a lot of things and you can get there quickly. But what if you break the bottom head on that one snare drum? Like you at least got to have 2 drums because time is money in the studio. So what if the snare wires pop or the bottom head pops and then you're eating up time? No one wants to deal with that, man. Time is money. A second bass drum pedal, because what if you break the spring,
Right. What do you bring to a typical demo session or, because when you're recording things these days, what are you bringing with you into a studio? And does it vary for?
It varies project to project. Because so let's say they're going to a studio and there's a house kit. So you talk to the person that owns the studio, the engineer, or the producer, and say like, "Hey, what's the condition? Like, what is the make and model of the house kit? What is the condition? Is it well maintained? Is there hardware? Can I adjust the snare drum? Is there a hi-hat clutch? Is stuff stripped out? Is the bass drum pedal, is it squeaky? Is there metal rubbing on metal on the cymbal stands? Are there felts?"
Mm-hmm.
And they say, "Man, it's pretty good." And the heads are pretty fresh. And you go, "Oh, great day." So then really all I need to bring is my stick bag, a bag of percussion to overdub some stuff, a couple of snare drums, still probably going to bring my bass drum pedal because that's so personal.
Yeah.
What if the pedal really is super squeaky or it's like super tight?
Right.
And you can barely move it. That's really going to slow down your day and you're not going to have a good time. You're not going to sound like yourself. And then no matter what they say about the hi-hat stand and the snare drum stand, it's always good to have those things because, the way I play pretty physically, a student model 1970s snare drum stand is probably not going to hold up.
Right.
And then you got to have lug locks. You got to have tons of gaff tape because you can use the gaff tape to modify the sound of your drums, but you can also use the gaff tape to, first thing I do is I gaff down the bass drum spurs so that doesn't move because I have a gorilla foot. And then I gaff down the bass drum pedal so that doesn't slide off because I have some sort of a weird technique with my bass drum where I kind of slide on the pedal and it just makes the bass drum pedal do this. So,
kicks out.
Which is not fun.
So the bottom of the bass drum pedal, you're taping down.
Yeah, even when I go to these jam nights, the Nashville Drummers jams or Tom Hurst's Loud jams or whatever, I'm the weird guy that runs up after the other guy. Yeah, other guy's getting off, I'm patting him on the back. "Great job, man. Get the hell off," because I tape down because I know that I'm only going to play a song for 3.5 minutes. It's probably going to be videotaped for all time. I want to enjoy myself. So this could be a deal breaker. So I tape that sucker down. Then I'll probably put a couple of strips of duct tape on the snare drum stand super quick while the girl singer's like, "How you guys doing? You having a good time?" Taping stuff. I'm taping it down so I can enjoy myself.
So you have your own gaff tape that you bring with you.
Always.
Wow.
Always got my man bag, with my lug locks and my gaff tape and my pedals, and you might need in-ear monitors or you might, it's just good to have this stuff with you.
Okay. This is getting geek talk. We're getting very techy.
Well, it's professional. It's just a professionalism.
I'm not blaming you.
Yeah.
This is fascinating to me. I don't think we have these conversations out of all the time we've known each other.
This is where all the business people are checking out the podcast. They're off.
But this is the thing. This is about what you need to be prepared.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just aren't that prepared.
Systems and processes, especially if you're going to travel.
Repetition.
Travel for a living. Man.
Yeah.
I just bought my last backpack, made it 8 years.
Yeah.
Leather backpack. Really nice. Went around the world.
Yeah.
I got a new one for 2025 with all the fresh zippers and it's got that new backpack smell. And all my stuff goes in a specific compartment because you want to be able to find things quickly and you want to know where everything is so you don't lose things because then you start losing, your iPhone charger and your computer charger and God forbid your laptop's at security. So you got to have systems together when you're mobile.
Yeah.
And
know where all things are
at all times.
How many cymbals do you think you have?
Well, we start thinking about drum sets. I mean, just drum sets, man. I got 3 drum sets in a locker in Burbank, California. I have 3 drum sets at Drum Paradise in Nashville, along with about 25 snare drums and tons of cymbals, bags and vaults of cymbals. And then I have stuff at Jason Aldean's locker. There's a B rig that is ready to go in the locker in case we have back-to-back gigs in different parts of the country. Then I have my A rig that lives on Jason's, semi.
Yeah.
And that's got tons of backup cymbals, several backup snare drums. Then I have tons of stuff at Crash Studio, my studio in Nashville. Another 30 snare drums, 9 drum sets.
So now think of the days when you just had the Yamaha kit.
The one drum set that only did one thing, and the floor tom was hung from the.
It was a rack tom?
It was a rack floor. because it was the Dave Weckl smoky black with the gold lugs.
Okay.
I wonder who has that kit now, man.
Because that's very nostalgic for you.
Totally nostalgic.
It's funny because I did that with my Pearl Exports. We had 2 of the drums. I think I made my 16 by 16 floor tom a hanging floor tom with just one of the Pearl adapters. Drilled the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, I think about the history of the drums that you've had. I had those cherry red Yamaha Stage Customs, and then.
But you didn't have duplicate kits back then. It was a matter of affordability.
Yeah.
So your first endorsement deal was with Sonor back in 01, 02? So you what was that like?
01.
Did you get to pick out? Hey kid, you could pick out 4 kits. Go have fun.
Beggars could not be choosers back then. When I was new on that roster, I was playing with a group called Rushlow with Tim Rushlow from Little Texas, and we worked really hard. We had 2 soft hits on country radio, and
I can't be your friend.
Yep. And I got an S-Class drum set.
It's funny because that's the flagship Mercedes.
It's the
model.
It's the S-Class drum set, and that drum set ended up on Hicktown. It ended up on.
Was it in the video?
It's in the middle of this mud pit, surrounded by monster trucks and flames and smoke and hot chicks, and I actually might be selling the Hicktown drum set.
Might be. Really?
I was thinking about letting it go into the universe. I think it would be great if it ended up in like a Hard Rock hotel or a Hard Rock cafe.
Yeah.
That'd be nice. But I do know a friend of mine they call him the drum pusher, and he sells celebrity drummer drum sets and
is he the guy who did
celebrity sidemen?
Now, if you're listening to this podcast, very musical, a lot of not inside baseball stuff, but I hope still good information that you could take and apply to your business, because a lot of what Rich, is, of course, technique. A lot of people see you as a country rock drummer, but it's amazing because you do have a really varied approach to different styles and all the things that you know. You have one of the most buttery smooth freaking double stroke rolls I've ever seen.
Thanks, buddy.
And, I've seen you play jazz. I've seen you play big band. I've seen you do snare solos. I mean, you are a master percussionist at what you do.
Thanks, buddy.
But you're also, and you and I have talked about this over the years, is the fact that you have such business acumen in a multitude of areas, in probably one of the most difficult businesses on the planet, which is very applicable to, I think, all businesses.
I mean, which one is gross and which one is net? Give me a good up. But yeah.
Hold on.
You probably don't use that one a lot on your podcast.
I keep on forgetting. There we go.
Oh, yeah. People love it.
Yeah. It's apropos.
Well, thanks, Jim. I feel like, you know what? You've had me on your show and the various iterations of your shows over the years.
Well.
And there's only so many things you can ask me, but you have found all these different ways to ask it.
But it's still fascinating to me because it's still, as much of a lifestyle, it probably wouldn't have been a match for me. It's still fascinating. It's still interesting because even when I sold cars, people were fascinated. People hated car salespeople, but I believe I was an exception to the rule because I did it integriously. I did it very honestly. And I made friends with my customers. I made sure that they could trust me. But they were always intrigued about the back room workings of a car dealership. You know?
When you say, well, let me go talk to my boss.
Right.
Where are you going and what are you saying?
But, I kind of got to the point where I'm like, if this is if we can get this and I can get my boss to agree on it, is this something you want to move on? If he says, okay, are you ready to move on this? I can't take this to him and with a weak agreement. If we're going to be talking about let's do the deal, let's figure out a price point and let's see. I don't know what he's going to be agreeable to.
Let's make a deal.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And that's the way I would kind of put it to them and say, if we come back and he's good to go, are you good to go?
Nice.
You ready to put this thing in your driveway this afternoon?
Did that work a lot?
Yeah.
Nice.
Because typically, at that point, I would say it in such a way that I was serious. Because if I can get him to agree, I don't know where we were in the month in terms of how desperate we were to move metal and how many cars were out and what kind of grosses were on them. I mean, there was all nebulous. It was all a lot of variables in that business.
Yeah.
you know.
But ultimately, it's about the customer, what they need.
Yeah. And
what
in
they
your
want.
case, your artist and whoever you're working for, right?
Totally. You've heard it 5 bajillion times. We are here to serve the song, serve the artist.
So is the artist the customer or is the song the customer? Or the listener the customer?
Oh man.
Right?
That's all a yes.
Yeah. That was a problem with radio.
The artist can't exist without
The listener, the audience, the fans.
and there would be no audience without the song.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's this symbiotic relationship.
It's such a balance, delicate balance. Even in radio, coming up in that business, I always said it was the most complicated business. I said, in general, because you've got two end users to appease in that business. You've got your listener, and then you got your advertiser. And you had to create an audience of listeners that would appeal to a certain kind of advertiser. And a lot of the salespeople will say, well, our audience, the advertiser, is more important than the listener because that's what pays for everything. And we would say, well, as programming department people, without the listener, you've got nothing to sell.
Yeah, no business.
Which comes first, chicken or the egg?
Yeah.
Right. And and then you work for a publicly traded company, you throw in a shareholder.
Oh boy.
You got 3. It's a delicate balance. And that's why you're seeing a lot of these radio companies are just faltering these days.
Yeah.
They didn't keep up with technology.
What we should do is scratch our own back. We do have this thing called the Rich Redmond Show, and we have 220 episodes.
Yes.
Pretty incredible.
It is.
It's amazing that we just keep showing up. And
It's akin to Michael Knox, Jason Aldean, sticking it out for 6-7 years.
Yeah.
And it's funny, we're kind of doing the same thing in podcasting world.
Yep.
I tell all my clients, well, when can I monetize? Sometimes that question comes up, and I say, you can monetize right out of the gate if you want.
Yep.
Well, how do I do that? Hang a shingle. Put an ad rate card together. How much for a 30, a 15, a 60? How much is a show sponsorship? How much is a studio sponsorship? How do we put numbers to all that? The numbers aren't going to be huge, but they could certainly offset your production costs. You could probably find somebody who's willing to take a gamble on the show a year from now being something, and they get in on the ground floor of an opportunity and pay a very nice entry fee to get their business plastered all over this thing. And then they have first right of refusal when, hey, now we got numbers, let's renegotiate. Now we can, ask for a lot more. You're more than welcome to accommodate this price. This was our agreement for a year. If not, we'll find somebody who will.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of people kind of go into podcasting. Well, when can I monetize? I always say right off the bat, but don't get your hopes up. Monetize it through the joy. You got to find the fun in doing this.
Yeah.
Much like you guys did from 90s. You did it. You wanted to do it for work and make a living. But man, so does a million other people.
But podcasting, much like authoring books nowadays, is basically a business card for some other business.
Sure.
Right?
There's so many elements to a podcast. I mean, it's talking about your own business. It's talking about other people's business. Who do you want to meet? Do you want to meet a CEO and invite them on your podcast? You never know. Ask. You got a show, you got a platform. It's got, you're getting a couple hundred downloads an episode. It's nothing to balk at.
No.
You got somebody who's enjoying it.
No, and over the years, we want to publicly thank, Angie McCray. It's her birthday today from School of Rock. Angie and Kelly were a sponsor, a longtime sponsor. It was very, very fun. And then, of course, my friend Bruce Klein, who is the lead singer of said best top 40 band in Dallas, Random Access. We were like longtime buddies, and he got into real estate, and he did some advertising with us. And I always enjoyed that because, you put so much time and energy into the show, and it was a great way for me to get you paid, Right. So if there's any listeners out there that want to, advertise on a hip, fresh, cool music, motivation, success, entrepreneurial angle podcast, talk to us. I think our podcast would be great for, coffee companies, fashion brands, musical accessory brands, local
music stores,
spots and hipster spots in Nashville. A great taqueria because, basically every musician in the world, I've never met a musician that didn't like tacos.
Right.
Or coffee.
Well, I agree with you. The coffees, the fashions, things of that nature. I've often toyed around the notion of taking all the podcasts we produce, and John and I have talked about this, putting just a rate card together. How many, pick the podcast you want to be on. Here's how much it is for them. Here's like a network of podcasts. Let's take the same spot, put it across all the different podcasts and see which one hits. If this one produces more, then put more of an emphasis and a spend on that podcast. Because I produce, probably 15, 16 podcasts at this point.
Oh, and we would do a live reads for our clients, you think? Or, because we did produced ads.
Yeah, we did produced ads. Yeah. I think the live reads, the integration into an episode, you would have to make a client understand there's a premium for that, because once it's baked in like that, it's there forever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As opposed to running a 30, 60, or a 15-second ad that can be dynamically placed. You can pull them in and unplug them and stuff like that, which is something we should probably think about doing. But, for the Try That podcast, they've got about 3 sponsors at this point.
Nice.
They're doing, video. They got 2 that run during the show, one that runs pre-roll. So,
yeah.
It can be done. And that's the way the general market is moving, because some of these podcasts have audiences that dwarf or that complete is it dwarf? Is it them dwarfing? So like the Joe Rogan show has got an audience that dwarfs most radio networks.
I thought it was a little person.
Joe Rogan?
No, I thought dwarf was little person.
But how something dwarfs another thing, why are we talking about this?
Yeah,
so basically he's got an audience that's just probably 10 times larger than most radio networks, like the entirety of the CBS Infinity radio network. Joe Rogan probably has from his one show.
And it's pretty incredible. How did he become so popular?
Because he had momentum going into it. He took advantage. He got into it because he loved being on Opie and Anthony's show, the radio show back in the day. And he says, well, I want to do that, but I'm not going to try and fight a gatekeeper or pay to be on another radio show or try to, audition my way on XM. There's this thing called podcasting that was coming out in 0607 because they called it podcasting because you could actually have a broadcast of a show on an iPod. So they combined the 2 words and went from broadcast to podcast. So didn't know if you knew that.
Oh, yeah. And I remember Steve Jobs announcing that. We had this thing called a podcast.
Yeah.
So Marin has been at it, I think, 15 years. So
Rogan's been at it for probably nearly 20 at this point.
Oh, so he was before Marin.
Yeah, I think Rogan started, I would say, 08 or 09.
Whoa.
So, and, it wasn't like it is now. He had to have, the tip of the iceberg of what you see is the rest of the iceberg underneath the sea is all the work he put into it.
He kept doing
it. He kept going.
Yep.
And a lot of what we're doing today, I think with you and I doing your show and what I'm doing with my show, this particular show, it's a local business show.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be freaking hitting it out of the park with a ton of listens. The funny thing is I have a podcast that's 11 episodes deep and we need to start it up again. It's called Capes and Hammers. I don't know if I told you about this.
Oh, it's about Marvel.
The Marvel stuff, all the movies and everything like that.
There's a lot of Marvel fans out there.
We haven't produced an episode on that friggin' podcast in probably 3 years. It still gets downloads.
Who's the other people?
It was CJ Whelan and Gray Arnold. Gray was like the encyclopedia of comic book knowledge, which oddly enough, I've got somebody like that in Ben, my new associate that works with me.
Oh, Ben's a Marvel guy.
Yeah, he's a comic book guy. And CJ was one of the guys at the previous organization who was a great technician, a great electrician now. He's actually, if you need an electrician, I'll give him a plug. Yeah. CJ Whelan, great guy. He's here locally in Spring Hill, and he does a great job. Comes to your house. He's great in front of your kids, in front of your family. Very good customer-facing person.
Nice.
And he's got a family to feed, and great. He just does a great job. So he would also be on the podcast because he was intrigued like I was. And I said, we would always have these amazing conversations before they would go off and work for the day about different ideas of the, the Marvel cinematic universe. Things like, why did Doctor Strange, what was the one thing he had control over when he met Thanos on Titan, and then they had the big fight and everything like that. And Doctor Strange for all the 14 million.
I'm sorry. What happened, buddy? What happened?
Are you falling asleep?
What? Yeah. I mean, man, I came up loving Spider-Man, but then, that universe just expanded and expanded. And I'm sure there's people out there that just, yeah.
There's things about those universes. I mean, now they get into the multiverse concept, and did you see the Spider-Man where all three of them came together?
No, I didn't miss that one.
Oh, it was a good one.
Yeah,
really good one.
Yeah,
it was one of the best ones since but one of the key movies that stand out since Endgame were definitely that one. I think Shang-Chi was a great movie. Like anything I'll go back and watch again, I think is a good one.
Nice.
And I've probably seen Shang-Chi like 12 times.
I never even had Shang-Chi on the to-do list. Do you think it's great?
It's good.
Wow.
It's a kung fu movie.
Gotcha.
If you like those.
Yeah.
Modern take on it with some, mystical magic and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
So you're an author as well. You wanted to make sure that we have the book behind us. You see on my shot that I've got the Making It in Country Music book right there.
Yeah, we had our friend Vin Santoro on last night, who played a lot of music with Dave Pomeroy. And Dave Pomeroy is a world-class bass player. He's also the president of our local 257 American Federation of Musicians chapter here in Nashville. He wrote the foreword. And I had some help with this book with my friend Jennifer Delazana. She's a professional author, and took about a year of our lives to write this thing, and got a lot of testimonials from great people in the industry. And I think it's got 5 stars on Amazon. And hey, it exists for all time. And if people want some insights on how to shave off time on navigating the thing that is Nashville, might help you out.
Maybe we need to advertise your book on your show.
Hey,
how much to advertise your book on your show?
Just depends on what I need for you to produce the ad.
Okay.
Sounds like a trip to Don Arturo's. And you do have a nice brand spanking new ad for my Drumtensive, which is really nice. But
that's another thing that you're a great marketer, and your hustle is still spot on because you've created a service where people could fly in and spend a day with you. And you'll break down all that. You've done it for me as I get ready to gear up and play for the Huey Lewis Band that's coming up.
Yep.
If you guys haven't heard about that those tickets are still available by the time this comes out. It should be about a week away. It's May 28th at the City Winery.
I'll be there, Jim. And also the best thing on the City, I've been there so much recently. They've got flatbreads, and they've got like a spicy chicken flatbread. So I will be front row with my flatbread and a glass of red.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, sit at the table with the wife and my brother and all that fun stuff.
Totally.
And, whoever else comes. And I think we have like a multitude of the drummers that we've been.
Is Anna coming?
Anna, Dan's girlfriend? Yeah. I don't know. We don't know yet. She may have to work that week. She's an esthetician in Washington. So Saturdays are important.
Oh, you mean like facials and waxing and all that kind of stuff? Yes. Good to know.
So he'll be there because he and I are performing that weekend in Georgia with the band. First time he and I are playing in probably about 13, 14
That'd
years.
Be awesome.
I know.
That'd be really great.
I'd love it if he moved here, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be so much. That would just to be in a band with him. We've never really been in a band, That'd
be awesome to be in a band with my brother, but, neither one of my brothers play a musical instrument. That would be difficult. But, so, if there's any musicians listening, or if there's any folks with musician kids, you fly into Nashville. We do 3 hours of educational training, and then I take you to a nice lunch, which is like sushi or steak. It's definitely not McDonald's. Then we do another 3 hours in the afternoon, and I just have we answer other questions. Then I have a deep curriculum, which kind of prepares you with the skill sets that you're going to need to master to come to a city like a Nashville, a New York, or a Los Angeles, because it's really this, a big city, music city. The same principles are going to apply.
Yeah.
But most people are gearing up to come to Nashville because this is one of the last true places for the music industry where people are all recording in the same room at the same time. And it's still affordable enough where you can get a house and have some dirt under your feet, not really worry about your kids going to school, and, create a life for yourself while you're going after music.
I would say for anybody that is even a hobbyist, like somebody in my shoes, by nature, being around you, being you're one of my best friends, looking at the way and style that you play, I'm a chameleon like that. I absorb it and I apply it. I think I am not the drummer I was when I was in my 20s. I think I'm a lot better. I think I'm more tasteful, and I've got a lot more flamboyant energy because a lot of that is your packaging that you display on a nightly basis when you're out doing your thing.
Yeah.
For anybody who's listening who knows a drummer or is a drummer, this is great. Just even if you're a hobbyist, you're playing in Des Moines and cover bands, you want to be the best guy in that area. This is a good program to take Rich up on because he'll break down all, he'll celebrate your strengths and build upon your strengths, but also, hey, this is a little bit weak. Let's try this. I mean, I think for me, you identified, we were working on shuffles and you suggested a kind of different variation of a shuffle. I'm like, okay, now I got something here. You know what I mean?
I was just showing a student of mine the other day, Curtis, and he's had taken 2 drum intensives. So it was the second time he flew into Nashville to study with me, and we were talking about reeling in the ears because I was talking about all the different types of shuffles. So, shuffles are like, you don't
hear them too much on the radio these days.
Yeah, so you don't hear them much. And so we were talking about reeling in the ears, which is, kind of a yacht rock shuffle. Yeah. And he was playing the kick drum pattern and it was feeling pretty good. But I said, put that little middle note in there after beat 1 and after beat 3, and it's kind of like the glue. It's like the force. It binds it all together. And he started working on that, and it just took it up a game. So this attention to detail, like I said, we'll find out what you need to work on. Definitely going to get you into reading music. I'm going to expose you to some other styles of music. So if you're just a rock and roll drummer, we're going to talk about jazz a little bit. We're going to talk about rhythms from other countries that you can incorporate into your playing. It'll make you a richer, more versatile, more marketable commercial drummer because, hey, playing drums for fun is great, but don't you want to be the best in your town at it? Don't you want to maybe make a little money at it? And so I can help you do that.
Yeah. Even for those, like as a voiceover person myself, doing it as long as I have, I still could probably use some coaching. The tough thing is finding the coach that can, that I'm not better than.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I would imagine that's kind of like for you, who's speaking into your life as a coach that you draw? Because you still have to, you're great at your craft.
Yeah.
But you still want to work on it and develop it. Is there anything that's happening now that,
nice. Well, there's some of my heroes that I have been following my entire life, and it just works out that the age difference between us is always going to be the same because the math works out like that. So I had a couple of people in my life that I kind of use as career models, and these guys are now in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. And so I'm looking at them going, how have they bobbed and weaved and changed and stayed relevant and, evolved in the industry? So I'll kind of watch their career and I think that some of these guys might be looking at me too, because I'm coming from another generation just a couple years back and going, well, how does he see the world? And, oh man, this kid started speaking, so maybe I need to start speaking. Or, hey, this guy, some of these guys are making themselves uncomfortable and they're putting themselves in situations that they're not necessarily doing all the time. That really helps their musicianship. So I have my people that I keep an eye on.
Yeah.
What are they doing? What can I keep stealing from them?
Right.
It's obvious that things are going well for them because he just did 22 years with this recording artist, and this guy just got a residency in Vegas, and this guy's doing that. So I just, and social media is a great way to kind of keep an eye on everybody all at the same time.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, one of the perks of social media. As long as you don't use it as, you get into the death by comparison thing, because that can really make you sour, and you just assume that everybody's got a better life than you.
Yeah.
And is doing better.
They can definitely put a good veneer out there.
Yeah.
That's exactly what a lot of social media is.
It's the highlight.
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
We're an hour and 38 minutes into this.
Oh my God.
We've been able to, even after knowing each other so well, still have hopefully a very compelling, informative, value-packed conversation. I think it is.
But you're a good host. You're a
Thank
a good interviewer.
Because I still have a genuine curiosity, we probably don't talk a lot about this stuff, Well,
you and I have just kind of dove headfirst into the trenches, and, originally starting my podcast was a way for me to continually practice thinking on my feet and sharpening my interview skills in a very kind of almost prepared inside the actor studio, buttoned up way, because I had a lot of interest in potentially being like a Mario Lopez.
Yeah.
And in all honesty, I don't think that's going to happen. So I just...
We're just another iteration of it.
Yeah, you and I are just kind of like... we just dove into the deep end of the pool, and we get in there with our guest. And one thing that the guest always says every time, so much so that we're putting it on one of our shirts.
Yeah.
Well, that was fun.
It was. It's always fun.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing is I'm a practitioner of what I tell my own clients is that even though I'm not getting directly paid for doing our show, doing the Ales and Tales podcast, it's fun.
Ales and Tales, you get free beer.
Free beer. You get exposed to different beers. Mike is it's another podcast I produce, the Ales and Tales podcast, the Ales and Tales podcast.com. Check it out. He is so good at describing beer. His articulation of the notes and the smells and the tastes and the flavors. It's really a fun episode, a fun series of episodes to listen to because we get into the beer, then we'll let it kind of linger and you kind of want to let it marinate. And that's when we get into the tales portion, whatever may come up, storytelling.
And it could be anything that's on their mind or from their past.
Oh, yeah. We get blue. Totally.
Nice.
I'm part of the show, so we're going to get blue.
I think it'd be nice to have some palate cleansers on that show, like
we do in between
cheese and crackers and some olives.
We'll cleanse our palates in between every episode. So we shoot 3 episodes at a time because we can't do any more. 4 episodes will be snockered.
That's
and it's like we always say, okay, it's the 3rd episode. Get ready.
Oh my God, does Mike drive his Porsche over here?
No, he is Ridgeline. He's got a Honda Ridgeline. But we're not that bad.
Gotcha.
Any cops that are listening. So. Well, man, I'm going to wrap it up, and they can find all the things at richredmond.com, correct?
REDMOND. Yeah, I'd love for you to visit my overpriced website. No, I love the guys. Everybody's looking for a quality website. They always do me a solid, but there's a great company called Muletown Digital.
Yeah, right down south of us.
Tons and tons.
Need to have those guys on my show.
It'd be great. Adam Silverman was the drummer with Lauren Elena, and we toured together 12, 13 years ago. And that's when I met him. And even at that time, he had this side hustle of teaching himself web design. And now he's got a huge company with tons of employees.
Yeah.
So it's amazing.
He's doing a website building business. Check those guys out.
Yeah.
Maybe they need to advertise.
Muletown Digital.
Why am I talking like I'm from Wisconsin? You advertise like from Chicago.
Yeah.
So yes, go to richredmond.com.
Yeah, buddy.
And of course, if you want to be on the show, there's a link at mmtbp.com, the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast. That is a .com address as well, but a lot more to type in. That's why I truncated it down to mmtbp.com. All the things are there. If you want to be on the show, let me know. And please be from this area or have some sort of influence in this area. That would be great. All the things are there. Rich, as always, we do this every now and then.
Great
and we
time,
still have
buddy.
stuff to talk about. So I'm happy about that.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate you having me. I was on the can this morning and I got the text. Do you want to be a guest on my show today? And I was like, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Sometimes these things happen. They work out that way.
It was great, buddy. Thank you so much.
I don't think I sent the text from the can, but maybe I did. I don't know. Well, there you go. Check us out. Thanks again for being on. We're going to wrap it up. Talk to you later.
Thanks, pal.